Greetings all, Ferrariman601 here. Welcome to the live commentary stream for the 2018 Belgian Grand Prix. It has been quite the summer break. I think we could all agree to that one. The silly season here in 2018 has been one of the most complicated ever, and unfortunately it has seen the demise of one team and the immediate resurgence of a new one replacing Force India. We now, technically speaking, have a new entrant in the Constructors' Championship, Racing Point Force India. So in other words, Racing Pointless, totally not Sahara, totally not Force India, Force India. They are being classed as a new constructor. Ocon and Perez are their drivers still, but no points in the Constructors' Championship. They are running the Force India chassis. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are. Have a good time. Thank you for joining us here today. The summer break is officially over, and as we're watching Martin Brundle talk to Charles Leclerc on the pre-grid here, courtesy of Sky Sports, the Belgian Grand Prix is upon us, and certainly it should be a good one. Jonathan Straitman, hello. Hesitated I, Yona? Welcome. Kevin Creighton, hello. Happy not summer break anymore. GT Player 599, hello. Yes, thank you for that warm welcome to Belgium, Jonathan. This is your home Grand Prix. Are you anywhere near Spa this weekend? All of our pre-grid procedures are well and truly underway at this point. Martin Brundle just ran into Sergei Shirotkin here on the pre-grid. What does the Russian have to say for us today? Shirotkin starting 15th on the grid here today. He just quoted Fernando Alonso and said, "We still hope to fight. I think we can fight." That typically means that your fortunes are about to go quite pear-shaped, but we'll see what he can do. No points for Shirotkin yet in 2018. He is the only driver who still has yet to score this season. Technically speaking, though, Force India, or not Force India, whatever you want to call them now, they're still Force India in my eyes. They don't have any points. However, that's going to change today because Ocon and Perez, they are on the second row of the grid, P3 and 4 respectively. So technically speaking, that is a debut qualifying effort for Racing Point Force India. That's pretty cool. The only team that did better, Braun. Jonathan wants to call Force India the pink cars. I think we could deal with that. They are definitely still pink. I was happy to see that. I'm also happy to see that most of their sponsors are still on the car. They did not sever the contracts when the team technically went defunct. That was good to see. And now the Belgian national anthem. getting a look there at the start of the pre-grid at what I can only presume is the trophy that'll be awarded to the race winner today. Definitely, it is a stylized version of the Johnny Walker logo. I thought the trophies had to be in the form of a traditional cup. They've definitely gotten away from that this year. We had a plastic gorilla in France, and now we have a Johnny Walker logo as the winner's trophy here in Belgium. I guess if you squint hard enough, it looks traditional. No, it doesn't. Christian Cantan, hello! You like my F1 Disillusion video? Yes! That was, I kind of had to make that one. This sport is definitely not going places where I would like it to go, but here it is. And at the moment, we do have a Grand Prix on our hands, so let's try to put all of that to the side for the moment, for the next 2 hours at least, and try to enjoy the spectacle here. I'm pretty sure we're going to see a Mercedes scampering off into the distance, but who knows what can happen. Speaking of what can happen, we do have a grid for today's race, and it reads a little bit like this. Pole position for car number 44, Lewis Hamilton. Changeable conditions at the end of qualifying yesterday. Hamilton mastered them the best. Pole position for the Englishman. In second place on row 1, Sebastian Vettel. Ferrari, they absolutely bungled a pole run for Kimi Räikkönen yesterday. They said that they didn't put enough fuel in his car. How a team doesn't put enough fuel in a car is beyond me, but that's supposedly what happened. Sebastian Vettel there in P2. Kimi Räikkönen could have been in P3 or P1. Instead, he is down there in P6. P3 for Esteban Ocon in the first of the Force Indias. He's immediately followed by his teammate Sergio Perez. They lock out row number 2. Technically speaking, a debut qualifying effort for the new rebranded Force India, not Force India. Nice result there. They'll be looking to score some points. P5 for Romain Grosjean in the first of the Haas cars. Solid qualifying effort there for the American team. P6, Kimi Räikkönen. Again, Ferrari, they bungled his qualifying run yesterday. He really did have the pace to be on pole, but P6 is the consolation prize for the Finn. P7, Max Verstappen in the first of the Red Bulls. He's followed immediately by his teammate, Daniel Ricciardo. P9, Kevin Magnussen in the second Haas. Really good qualifying for Haas, a Q3 showing for both cars. P10, Pierre Gasly in the Toro Rosso. P11, Brendan Hartley in the second Toro Rosso, and he's followed in P12 by Charles Leclerc in the first of the Saubers. His teammate, Marcus Ericsson, immediately behind him in P13. P14 for Fernando Alonso. Fernando Alonso, over the summer break, announcing that he is retiring from Formula One. He has not yet told us definitively what he is doing next year. However, all signs appear to him jumping ship over into IndyCar in the United States. I shall be quite happy about that indeed. P15 for Sergei Sirotkin in the first of the Williams. He is ahead of his teammate Lance Stroll, who lines up 16th. P17, Valtteri Bottas in the second Mercedes. Well, yeah. Your teammate's on pole. You've lined up in 17th. Not the best day for you, Mr. I just signed another contract with the same team. P18, Nico Hülkenberg in the first of the Renaults. He is followed by his teammate Carlos Sainz. And last on the grid, P20 for Stoffel van Dorn. The Belgian in his home Grand Prix lines up last. That has to be quite demoralizing. Of course, the silly season is in full force, and all signs point to Lance Stroll, whose father just bought Force India. The signs point to Lance Stroll going to Force India, perhaps as soon as the next race at Monza. If this happens, that means, unfortunately, Esteban Ocon is going to be out of a job, and it could trigger a whole slew of driver movement. Probably the biggest story in that, though, is Robert Kubica could be promoted to a race seat at Williams. We could see him return for the Italian Grand Prix. That would be very interesting. I would be very sad for Esteban Ocon, though, because I do think he has done a very good job in his somewhat brief Formula One career. He's qualified at the start of row 2 today, so if there ever were any evidence to suggest that a driver should stay where he currently is, he's definitely given it to Force India to consider. Lance Stroll, though, his father, now the team owner there, pretty sure they can do nothing about Ocon's position if Stroll really does want to move over there. Obviously, the Force India, a much better car than the Williams could ever hope to be this year. Yes, I certainly do hope that Ferrari could come back strongly in this race. Vettel's in a good position to do that. However, Lewis Hamilton tends to make good starts this year. The Ferraris also make very good starts. I'm always amazed at how quickly they can get this thing off the line and up through the first few gears, but we'll see. Pole position here at Spa is interesting. Pole position is actually on the inside. It's on the right-hand side of the grid, meaning that Hamilton, technically speaking, does not have the preferred line going into La Source. However, he does have the preferred line if you do want to lock down the apex of the corner. So if Vettel cannot get a launch on him basically directly off the start, Hamilton is in a perfect position to scamper off into the sunset. Yes, what did Stoffel do over the summer break? I'm not sure. He's certainly not thinking so keenly about his future, though. Carlos Sainz has been confirmed at McLaren for next year. Technically speaking, he's going to be replacing Fernando Alonso, but who knows if Van Dorn is going to be retained by McLaren for 2019. We don't know any information about that yet. He does have Lando Norris, the McLaren development driver, nipping at his heels. I do know that McLaren would love to get Lando in a car, but are they going to do that at Stoffel's expense? It certainly does appear so, but we don't know anything on that front quite yet. Trying to pull up a weather report here for the Spa-Francorchamps vicinity. Let's see, what is the nearest somewhat large city to the circuit? So we can try and get some hyper-local weather reports here. At any rate, at this point, drivers starting to get into their cars. We have about 5.5 minutes remaining before the start of the formation lap. And at that moment, the summer break will officially have ended. There we go. I have got the AccuWeather app here in the United States spec, of course, so telling it to look up international locales, particularly extra-continental locales outside of North America. It's sometimes a difficult thing to do, but I do have Spa here pulled up. I am showing ambient temperatures of 60 degrees F, and I am really not showing any chance of rain whatsoever. Hourly forecast here showing very moderate temperatures all the way through the rest of the day. Some scattered clouds perhaps over the next 2 hours, but there does not appear to be any appreciable chance of rain. This is true, Jonathan. The climate here at the Belgian Grand Prix has always been the stuff of legend. The circuit is the longest on the calendar, and it also is one of the most extreme in terms of elevation changes. Over the course of the lap, we have about 400 to 500 feet of elevation change. Of course, a lot of it through the Eau Rouge Radio Complex, but most people don't realize this because the TV cameras tend to flatten things out, but basically the entirety of Sector 3 is actually uphill to some extent or another as you come up into Stavelot, and then you do the run all the way back up the side of the circuit, through the Blanchiment corner, up to the bus stop. That's all an uphill stretch, so that is actually where you get the majority of your elevation change at this circuit. Of course, we do have the diving left-hander of Pouhon. That's through about 100 feet or so of elevation change as well. So all of that conspires to mean that the winds at one side of the circuit could be very different from another, and that also means that they can bring clouds over one side of the circuit but not the other. Quite often here we have seen it be sunny on the start-finish straight, but absolutely bucketing down with rain around the Pouhon area, so it definitely can happen here. Christian Gaitan wants to talk IndyCar silly season. Would Roger Penske get Fernando Alonso on board? Yes, he definitely would. The problem is, I think Fernando wants to enter IndyCar with a McLaren-backed entry put together in collaboration with Andretti Autosport. Andretti and Penske, obviously, they are competitors, and Alonso seems to be wanting to do that. If McLaren somehow bungle that IndyCar program, as I'm pretty sure they will at this point, because they don't really seem to be committing to anything one way or another. Definitely, if Fernando Alonso wanted to become a free agent in the IndyCar driver market, somebody like Roger Penske would want to gobble him up immediately. Problem is, Roger Penske has an absolutely fantastic cadre of drivers already, so somebody would have to go. Fernando, yes, he's a two-time Formula One world champion, but he's essentially untried at an IndyCar. It'd be a risk for somebody like Roger Penske, but I am certain that Fernando Alonso would deliver the goods. Inside 2 minutes to go now before the start of the formation lap. The World Feed cameras just focusing in on the eyes of Valtteri Bottas, and now on those of Romain Grosjean there in the Haas in his 5th place grid slot. Nice qualifying effort once again by the Frenchman. Sergio Perez looking like he's got something to prove. He's definitely racing for his job at this point, as is Ocon. We'll see if either man keeps it through the end of the season. I'm not optimistic about that in the case of Ocon. Sergio Perez, though, he was personally involved in the administration row between Force India and their debt holders. I'm not entirely sure if he has pulled out of that in terms of his own monetary assets, but he had a hand in this change of ownership in Force India, so perhaps his job is safe. Sebastian Vettel there, just being lowered onto the ground. The tire blankets have been removed. Mechanics just throwing them on top of the wheels for another couple of seconds of wonderful tire heating before they take them off and all the heat goes away again so the drivers can pull out onto the formation lap. 2 red lights remain on at the head of the grid. We can see most of the team personnel clearing off the grid now, leaving the drivers on their own. Just waiting for the official clock to tick to 10 past the hour, which it has done. Green lights at the start of the field, and they roll off on the formation lap. Happy not summer break, everybody. Formula One is back. The Belgian Grand Prix about to get underway. Looks like all cars have gotten off of the pre-grid, and now all the mechanics in true Formula One fashion will sprint back into the pit lane. Big gap here forming on the formation lap between Grosjean in P5 and Raikkonen in P6. Not quite sure what the reasoning behind that was. Perhaps Grosjean and Raikkonen just got away a little bit later than everybody else, but the field should be packing themselves back up in due course. You can definitely see that the Max Verstappen fans are here. Lots of orange smoke being released along Kemmel Straight. Max should be appreciating that. On board with Sebastian Vettel through Pouhon here for the first time on race tires. Lewis Hamilton definitely setting a very quick pace on this formation lap. He'll be wanting to back the field up behind him. Big gap now between Raikkonen and Verstappen on the formation lap. Hopefully they'll just get all of that tidied back up. Nobody wants to be left sitting on the grid for too long. These cars obviously will start to cook themselves if they sit still for too long with the engines running. There we go. Hamilton now starting to back them up. Hamilton leading the field back up toward the start of the lap. They're approaching the bus stop chicane now. Don't call it bus stop, but it is the bus stop. Ambient conditions, air temp at 17°C, track temp at 29°C, humidity at 37%, wind speed 7.5 kilometers per hour. I believe it's a headwind going down the Kemmel Straight at this time. Frontrunners have made their way back onto the grid. Hamilton and Vettel stopping in their respective grid slots, waiting for everybody else to assemble behind them. The two Force Indias, the Haas of Grosjean, Raikkonen's Ferrari, etc. They have all stopped, waiting for the final two rows, and then we should see the lights go out. Van Dorn in P20, just taking his position. Green flag is up at the back. Here come the lights for the start of the 2018 Belgian Grand Prix. Lights out and we are away. Good starts across the front row. Sebastian Vettel a little bit slow away. Perhaps a Force India is going to be trading positions with him into turn one. And big accident in the back. Oh dear. Huge accident in the back. A McLaren got airborne into La Source. It went over the top of a Sauber. I believe that was Charles Leclerc. We do need a replay of that. We're going to get a safety car undoubtedly from this start. Yellow flags out. Safety car deployed. Safety car is deployed. Sebastian Vettel has overtaken Lewis Hamilton. 4 wide into Lecombe, but the safety car is out, guys. Calm down. No overtaking. Sebastian Vettel overtook... Yes, he overtook Lewis Hamilton. Did he do that, technically speaking, before the safety car was deployed or not? I showed timing and scoring with safety car deployed. Fernando Alonso was the McLaren involved in that very scary incident. He was airborne. His car landed on top of a Sauber. I could not identify which Sauber it was. Was that Leclerc? I think it may well have been. Kimi Raikkonen with a puncture. Raikkonen at the back with a puncture. This is happening under safety car, but Raikkonen just coming down through the Rivage corner right now. He has a long way to go. Hopefully he can avoid any floor damage on that Ferrari, but that is good. That's happening under the safety car at very least. A replay of the start. This is a long shot. Big lockup, and wow, Fernando Alonso catapulted over a Sauber. I still cannot identify that car. That was a lockup by... Ah, man. I believe that is Charles Leclerc. Indeed it was. That was the Sauber of Charles Leclerc on board with Nico Hülkenberg on the start. Big lockup by Hülkenberg. He just catapulted himself into the back of Fernando Alonso, and quite oddly, the McLaren immediately took off and landed right there, square on top of the car of Charles Leclerc. That is a terrifying accident. On board with Leclerc, this should be spectacular. Leclerc has received terminal damage to that car. He is out of the race, but that is absolutely spectacular. Race control says the first corner incident is under investigation. Meanwhile, down to Ricciardo in the pit lane. No particular urgency to this stop. The rear wing is gone from the Red Bull. Yes, there is no rear wing left on that Red Bull. Just the central support pylon and the DRS flap still there, but the end plates and the main plane are gone. We are under safety car conditions. Perhaps Red Bull will attempt to change that rear wing, depending on whether or not there's any rear suspension or gearbox damage. Cameras there at La Source picking up Nico Hülkenberg and Fernando Alonso. They seem to be all right. We've yet to see Charles Leclerc. He was still in control of the car after the impact, so I do believe him to be okay, perhaps shaken a bit. The car of Fernando Alonso landed directly on top of the cockpit area of that car. On board with Sebastian Vettel in replay, overtaking Lewis Hamilton. I don't see yellow flags at this time. All the marshalling posts, there are no flags up at all at that point. Was the safety car notification given before that overtake? That is the only bit of interest at this point, other than the condition of Charles Leclerc. Again, I do believe that he should be okay. Esteban Ocon also taking a very close look at both Lewis Hamilton and Sebastian Vettel in the run-up down to Les Combes. He was on the inside of the circuit at that point. Currently, our running order is Vettel from Hamilton, Perez, and Ocon, Verstappen, Grosjean, Magnussen, Gasly, Ericsson, and Sirotkin, your top 10. 11th for Stroll, 12th for Hartley. He's followed in 13th by Sainz, 14th for Bottas, 15th for Van Dorn, 16th for Kimi Räikkönen, now on the medium tires. Out of this race, apparently in a Turn 1 incident, Daniel Ricciardo, Charles Leclerc, Fernando Alonso, and Nico Hülkenberg. Ricciardo, technically still classified. Red Bull may attempt to change the rear wing. Yes, was that overtake on Lewis Hamilton by Sebastian Vettel legitimate? I did not see any yellow flags up on the Kemmel Straight at that point, so I will assume that that is going to stick. Another replay of the start from the angle from which we saw it the first time. That was absolutely terrifying. And the McLaren comprehensively destroyed there. Here's a replay of the start of the 2012 Belgian Grand Prix. Remember, Pastor Maldonado, he jumped the start there. Lewis Hamilton getting into Romain Grosjean there, who got into Fernando Alonso. So Fernando Alonso not a stranger to incidents at La Source here at the Belgian Grand Prix. That was a scary incident. Romain Grosjean received a race ban due to that incident. Will similar things happen to Nico Hülkenberg? Looking at the Red Bull garage there, they are putting the car of Daniel Ricciardo back together. They do appear to be trying to get him back out again. He's one lap down. Taking a look at the comprehensively destroyed McLaren of Fernando Alonso. That was a scary accident. Working lap 3 of 44. We are still behind the safety car. We will find out in a few moments whether or not the safety car will be coming in. Lewis Hamilton has got to be careful about these gaps behind the safety car. He just dropped back quite a ways from Sebastian Vettel. The drivers have to remain within 10 car lengths of the car in front under safety car conditions. That was more than 10 car lengths, Lewis. Lights are still on top of the safety car. I do believe that we will remain behind the safety car for at least one more lap. Yes, Christian Gaitan, that crash for Robert Wickens at Pocono, I was there. It was not a good feeling knowing what had just happened. The latest updates from Lehigh Valley Medical Center there in Long Pond, they are telling us that Robert is okay. He's talking to his family. He's breathing unassisted. He is just very banged up. Another replay of our start here at Spa, now in slow motion. Yes, it was definitely a lockup for Hulkenberg. And I am just spellbound at how high in the air that McLaren got. We're not talking about very high speeds in the approach to La Source on lap 1, and everybody had been braking for quite a while. It appeared what happened was Hulkenberg got into the back of Alonso, and that punted the McLaren sideways, and it hit the Sauber of Charles Leclerc side on, and that sort of impact is what launched the car. Word from race control, safety car coming in at the end of this lap. Safety car in this lap. Yes, Jonathan, it does appear that Halo did have a positive impact in the outcome there. We'll have to see a couple more replay angles if they are available to see exactly where on that Sauber the McLaren did land, but the McLaren did land on top of the Sauber. That cannot be disputed. It did appear that the right front tire of the McLaren made contact with the right side of the Halo on Leclerc's car. Again, we'll have to take another look at that, but I did think that I saw a tire mark on the side of the Halo there for Charles Leclerc. At any rate, safety car is coming in. Lights are out. Sebastian Vettel now becomes the de facto safety car. Lewis Hamilton trying to stick as close as he possibly can to the gearbox of the Ferrari SF71H in front of him. When will Seb decide to put the hammer down and go racing? We shall find out. Of course, he does not want to overtake the safety car before it crosses into the pit lane entrance. Seb taking the opportunity to get the last bits of heats into his tires. Waiting for Sebastian to drop the throttle down to the floor pan. Let's see. Field really stacking up now behind the Ferrari. They don't want to have any disadvantage. Green flags are up. Sebastian has dropped the hammer. We are racing again here at Spa, working lap 4 of 44. Lewis Hamilton taking a look at Sebastian Vettel into the bus stop chicane. No overtaking until you cross start finish, Lewis. And off we go. Crossing start finish to begin lap number 5. The order is Vettel from Hamilton, from Perez, from Ocon, Verstappen in P5. Sergei Sirotkin looking a little bit racy down there in P11. And the entire field has made it through La Source unscathed at this point. Danny Ricciardo, for the record, appears to have rejoined the race in P17. He is 2 laps down. Lewis Hamilton tucking into the slipstream of the Ferrari in front down the Kemmel Straight. Nothing for the Ferrari this time around. Of course, DRS will be reactivated within 2 laps' time. The field coming through Les Combes, everybody behaving themselves. Sebastian Vettel managing to pull out a bit of a gap already. The interval is 1.1 seconds according to the television graphics. The interval is 0.6 of a second according to live timing right now. We'll see how that develops. Resuming from a safety car period, it tends to take timing and scoring about a lap to shake out again. Lewis Hamilton does appear to be dropping back a little bit from the Ferrari ahead. We'll see how that develops over the course of the next couple of laps when DRS comes back. There it is, at the timing line. Vettel leads Hamilton by 1.681. That is the gap. He is out of DRS range of the Mercedes once DRS is reactivated. World feed following Max Verstappen in hot pursuit of Esteban Ocon. This is for P4. Verstappen is close enough for a pretty good slipstream. We'll see if he can do anything down Kemmel. Sebastian Vettel, for the record, fastest lap of the race so far, a 148.656. Hamilton last time by a 149.718. Camera's picking up Charles Leclerc walking back into the pit lane. That is good to see. He appears to be unharmed, walking unassisted, helmet in his hands. Not looking happy, but he is looking healthy. Let's compare sector times. Vettel Sector 1, 31.706. Hamilton Sector 1, 31.618. Sector 2, Vettel goes fastest of all, 47.823. Hamilton, 48.523. Waiting for the Sector 3 time there from Sebastian Vettel, but Vettel is much better in Sector 2 than is Hamilton. He is 47.8, Hamilton 48.5, almost a full second. Sector 3, 29.394 for Sebastian Vettel, 29.356 for Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton marginally faster in Sector 1 and 3. Vettel definitely has the measure of him in Sector 2. DRS has been enabled, working lap 7 of 44. The gap at start-finish last time by Vettel to Hamilton, 2.255. Verstappen taking a close look at Ocon here. He should have DRS on him as we come down Kemmel. We'll see if the Dutchman can get inspired here and make a move. Anybody who's watched Max Verstappen for any amount of time knows he doesn't need much persuasion to try to make an overtake happen. That's a scything maneuver into Les Combes, and Verstappen, comparatively speaking, makes easy work of the Force India. Verstappen now up into P4, Ocon down to P5. Onboard in replay with the car of Ocon. Ocon moves to the inside and then back out to the outside, trying to block Verstappen. Verstappen says, I'm going to have none of that, thank you very much, give me the position. Max's next target's going to be Sergio Perez. He is 0.6 of a second behind the number 1 Force India. That shouldn't take too long for Max to do. Meanwhile, the frontrunners working lap 8 of 44. The gap at the line, 2.580, Vettel to Hamilton. The gap is remaining pretty stable, growing a little bit. In replay, on board with Valtteri Bottas, that was overtaking Brendan Hartley into Eau Rouge. That move was pretty much done before the corner started, but still pretty hair-raising stuff seeing cars go side by side through there. Bottas gets the move done. And we have a Ferrari in the pit lane. That is Kimi Räikkönen. No sense of urgency here. His brakes are on fire. Räikkönen appears to switch the car off. No, he doesn't. He's back running again. I don't know why they had him in the pits. They did not change the tires. Did they just want to take a look at something? That's quite odd. Perhaps Ferrari turning this into a test session for Räikkönen. Räikkönen has resumed the race. World feed cameras picking up Perez and Verstappen. Now the gap is 0.983. Verstappen certainly will be wanting P3 out of this. To his credit, though, Perez doing a good job holding station where he is. He's very much running his own race. He can't compete with Hamilton or Vettel, but he is holding down P3 for the moment. Speaking of Vettel, new fastest lap, 148.646. Hamilton last time by 148.834. Running on board with Valtteri Bottas here through La Source. He is in pursuit of Carlos Sainz in the Renault. Not quite close enough for a good slipstream. He should have DRS, though, down Kemmel. Valtteri Bottas opens the flap on the rear wing, sucks himself up to the back of the Renault, and see ya! Bottas over Sainz for P12. Kimi Räikkönen once again visiting the pits here for Ferrari. This appears like a retirement. They are putting the blowers in position over the front and rear brake ducts, and they are wheeling that Ferrari on dollies back into the garage. Doesn't necessarily mean they won't get him back out, but it does mean that he is no longer in contention here realistically for anything. Danny Ricciardo is the only car behind Kimi Räikkönen, classified one lap down. Räikkönen classified P16 at the moment. Max Verstappen now hounding Sergio Perez. He had DRS down start-finish. He will do so again down Kemmel. Verstappen is very close to the Mexican. 0.6 was the gap at the line. This is going to be an overtake from Max Verstappen, undoubtedly. DRS open once again on the Red Bull. He's got the run down Kemmel. Coming into Lecum, Perez goes defensive to the inside, forcing Max around the outside, but move done by Verstappen. Verstappen now up into P3, and the Dutch fans love that. On board in replay with Verstappen with that move on Perez. Pretty textbook stuff. Easy as you like. DRS assisted overtake. Meanwhile, the world feed now picks up Sebastian Vettel once again. Speaking of running your own race, he is now ahead of Lewis Hamilton to the tune of 3.2 seconds on lap 10. This is working quite swimmingly for the German. Lewis Hamilton, he's really dropped back. He's nowhere in comparison to Sebastian Vettel. World Feed now sets its sights on Valtteri Bottas and Daniel Ricciardo. Ricciardo, of course, is a lap down relative to everybody else, but on track he is behind Valtteri Bottas. Bottas running in P12. His next target is going to be the Williams of Lance Stroll. Sergei Sirotkin still holding P10 and the final point for the moment. On board in replay of the start with Daniel Ricciardo. It was Ricciardo who got into Raikkonen and caused the puncture. That's what happened to the Ferrari. Interesting. In replay there of the first Ferrari pit stop, when Raikkonen came back in, the DRS was stuck open. Definitely some hydraulic lines got mangled when that tire delaminated on board. That's probably why they've retired Raikkonen. DRS stuck open is not something you want around here. Yes, Jonathan, interesting point there and good spot on your part. Red Bull not running a lot of rear wing at all. It looks a lot like the IndyCar oval spec wing at the moment in terms of the angle that they're running. Hardly any rear wing whatsoever. That just tells you that they've got a lot of underbody downforce on that car. Would expect nothing less from Adrian Newey's designing brain. Everybody else running significantly more rear wing. Bottas with DRS on Sirotkin. This is for the final points-paying position. He has disposed of Lance Stroll. I would be expecting Bottas to overtake this Williams before too long. The gap at the front, though, 3.7 seconds separate Hamilton from Vettel. Verstappen is 10.2 seconds behind Sebastian Vettel in P3. Sebastian Vettel last time by resets fastest lap 148.495. Bottas on Sirotkin down the Kemmel straight into Lake Combe, no problem whatsoever. Bottas now up into P10. Daniel Ricciardo will be attempting to unlap himself from the guys around him. He is around the vicinity of Sainz, Stroll, and Sirotkin at the moment. As we go on board with Sebastian Vettel, starting lap number 13. Sebastian driving in utterly metronomic pace. His laps have all been in the 48.6s. Lewis Hamilton just 0.02 of a second slower than Vettel that last time by. Vettel last lap 148.663. Hamilton last lap 148.665. The sole remaining Ferrari in this field looks very planted indeed around this very technical and very challenging circuit. No problems at the moment, at least no apparent problems for Sebastian Vettel. 3.7 seconds remains the gap between he and Lewis Hamilton, positions 1 and 2. Vettel just driving very calmly in a very controlled manner. He definitely has this race under control, now beginning lap 14. Verstappen radio. Verstappen definitely in attack mode. Problem is, he's got 11 seconds up the road to get to Sebastian Vettel. It's a little bit closer than that to Lewis Hamilton. Unfortunately, does not appear that that's a gap he could assail at the moment. World feed picking up. Sergio Perez now running in P4. And things do appear to be settling down now throughout the order. Taking a look at Esteban Ocon, now down into P5, started in third. Both of the Force Indias down at least one spot from where they started. Still a fine performance, running fourth and fifth at the moment. These guys, though, they do have a history between each other of getting into each other at the Belgian Grand Prix. Hopefully they will have sorted all of that out. Of course, the new team owners will not be impressed by any contact between these two cars, so let's hope that they exercise some discretion. They should do. Last year, they had a big coming together here down the secondary grid here, heading down toward the Eau Rouge Radio complex. Hopefully all of that is going to be sorted this time around. Taking a look at Romain Grosjean, currently running in P6, all by himself at the moment, running his own race. Everything appears to be good on board that Haas. Just barely out there in the distance in the long-range camera shots of Romain Grosjean can we see the Force India of Esteban Ocon. Definitely a very large gap there, but for the moment Grosjean doing a very good job there in the Haas. On board with Kevin Magnussen, his Haas teammate. Magnussen currently running in P7. This car looks like it's handling quite well as well. Meanwhile, at the front, Lewis Hamilton now sets fastest lap, a 148.479, fastest of all in Sector 2. Compare that to Sebastian Vettel, 148.679 last time by. The world feed just taking turns looking at different cars going out throughout the field here. Not too much action happening throughout the field. Taking a look at the Sauber of Marcus Ericsson, the only Sauber still in this race. He is in pursuit of Pierre Gasly. Ericsson in P9, Gasly in P8. Ericsson, of course, wants P8 quite badly. At the moment, not close enough to the Toro Rosso in front. Ericsson is definitely doing a good job. This year, Ericsson has really become a very competent Grand Prix driver. It's interesting to watch, but his first couple of years in Formula One, he was very inconsistent, but now something appears to have switched on with Marcus Ericsson and the way that he is interfacing with this car. It's working out for him. Yes, Jonna, that's a good point. Ferrari, at least with one car, doing quite well here. Next race at Monza. Very similar circuit to Spa in terms of the aerodynamic requirements. You want a low drag setup for this place. You want an even lower drag setup for Monza. But if Ferrari are doing well here, they should be in contention at Monza. Ricardo Radio. Down to Ricardo down there in P16, still classified 2 laps down, but running. He says, this is pretty much the maximum pace. I'm struggling to get more out of it. Remember, there was no rear wing on that Red Bull after the start of this Grand Prix, so certainly there are some issues there for Daniel Ricciardo, but he is still running. To his credit, he is doing the best he can. Valtteri Bottas now looks like he is, yes, he is at the back of Marcus Ericsson. This is for P9. The Mercedes should overhaul the Sauber without too much persuasion. On board with Valtteri Bottas. Got a good run on him before he even gets to the DRS line down Kemmel. He should just drive past him, and he does. Bottas now up into P9. Ericsson demoted to 10th. Ericsson Radio. Sauber telling Ericsson to use Bottas to get up to Gasly. I don't think that's going to happen. The Mercedes was very fast down the straight in comparison to the Sauber. Bottas had the run on him before he even opened DRS, so I don't think that idea of using Bottas as a slipstream generator is going to come to fruition for the Sauber guys. Good thought, but they just don't have the performance to do it. Meanwhile, speaking of Pierre Gasly, he's still running in P8. He is the next target of Valtteri Bottas. Jonathan, Sector 2 times. Sebastian Vettel, last time through Sector 2. We'll actually have to wait for him to go through the timing loop. Max Verstappen, last time through Sector 2, a 47.782. We're just waiting for that time from Sebastian Vettel through Sector 2. Meanwhile, Bottas now within striking distance of Pierre Gasly. Again, he should have DRS down Kemmel. Vettel, Sector 2, 47.848. So comparable to the Ferraris there in Sector 2, Red Bull to Ferrari. Christian Gaitan, yes, it is quite interesting that we haven't heard any problems for Honda recently. It does lead me to believe that perhaps it was not all engine related in terms of the reliability problems that McLaren had with Honda for the last 3 years. Perhaps McLaren just could not get the chassis integrated with the engine quite properly, because Toro Rosso, they have had some problems with the Honda engine, but not nearly as many as McLaren used to have. Meanwhile, Mercedes getting ready in the pit lane for somebody. Who will be in first? I do reckon it would be Valtteri Bottas. Taking a look at his rear tires, we can see some significant graining and blistering going on with his left rear wheel. Take a look and see if he makes a change. Meanwhile, World Feed picks up the front end of the field. Sebastian Vettel still leading Lewis Hamilton by 3.4 seconds. The gap has come down ever so slightly. Vettel last time by a 148.600. Hamilton last time by a 148.706, so about a tenth in it. We did see Mercedes in the pit lane. We have not seen any of their drivers pit yet. Taking a look at the Ferrari garage, there's the car of Kimi Räikkönen. The mechanics just sort of sitting around it as if it were a campfire. They don't appear to have any sense of urgency in terms of servicing Sebastian Vettel anytime soon. On board with Sebastian Vettel as he crosses timing and scoring at start-finish to begin lap number 20. Everything on board the SF71H appears to be copacetic. Sebastian does not appear to be working any problems. The gap between Vettel and Hamilton, 3.35 at this time. There is the Ferrari coming down Kemmel. There is the Mercedes in pursuit, but rather a long way back. Taking a look at Lewis Hamilton into Lecombe. Mercedes also looks to be in good nick. I don't see any obvious signs of problems, no damage on that car. Hamilton just using the curbing as you would expect. I don't see any obvious understeer or oversteer. The Mercedes and the Ferrari both look like they are hooked up quite nicely around here. Taking a look at the tires of Lewis Hamilton, left rear is quite blistered. Ferrari there getting a little bit squirrely through Stavolo over the exit curbs. Sebastian just correcting it there with a little bit of opposite lock, no problem. Again, we are expecting pit stops anytime now. Yes, there are the blisters on the rear tires of the Mercedes, much more severe on the left rear than it is on the right rear. Very similar to what we're seeing on Valtteri Bottas as well, so very similar setups on both of those Mercedes cars. Slow motion replay through the bus stop for Lewis Hamilton. There are the blisters on the left rear tire. Looks bad, but it's something that we've seen a lot of this year. Taking a look at the rear tires on the Ferrari, no obvious signs of blistering. On aggregate here over the last lap, Lewis Hamilton 0.045 faster than Sebastian Vettel. The gap is 3.34 seconds. World Feed now takes us on board with Max Verstappen radio. Red Bull just telling him, "This is good, Max, just keep doing what you're doing." "Well, don't mind if I do," says Max Verstappen. Another replay of the Turn 1, Lap 1 incident, namely between Fernando Alonso and Charles Leclerc. I don't know how many more times I can watch that and still be terrified, but that is absolutely terrifying. Hamilton in the pits here. onto the soft tires. Very quick stop by Mercedes. So Hamilton is the first to blink of the front runners for tires. Looks to be a scrub set of softs going onto that Mercedes. Vettel radio. Ferrari telling Vettel, box. Hamilton getting back up to speed there on his soft compound tires. He's down into P3 on the pit stop rotation. Verstappen inherits P2 for the moment. Again, we are expecting him to stop anytime soon, as are we expecting Sebastian Vettel to stop. He's just going through the Fanny chicane right now. Coming up to the Stavolo corner to complete lap 22. We are officially at half distance in this race. Ferrari to the pit lane. Sebastian Vettel coming in on this lap. Through the bus stop chicane. Seb is in. Race leader is in. Vettel stops on the marks. 4 tires off, 4 tires on the ground. Ferrari released back into the pit lane. Max Verstappen just coming out of the bus stop chicane right now. This is going to be close. I do believe the Dutchman will overhaul the Ferrari here on the pit stop rotation. Maybe not. It's going to be close. It's going to be a drag race down into Eau Rouge Radio, perhaps. Sebastian Vettel ahead of the Red Bull right now. Again, the Red Bull has yet to stop. Lewis Hamilton just 0.4 of a second behind Max Verstappen, though. The gap between Vettel and Verstappen, 1.2 seconds. So Ferrari have managed to get their man out in front of both Max Verstappen and, more importantly, Lewis Hamilton, who now overtakes Max Verstappen. Verstappen does have a stop to make, remember. Yes, we say good work Ferrari, but look at where Ferrari are. They've only got one car in this race. One could argue that had they not messed up Kimi's qualifying run yesterday, both Ferraris would still be in the field right now. So, yes, Ferrari doing a good job here with Sebastian Vettel, but the other cars retired. It does appear that it's going to be a one-stop strategy at this point. It appears that the front runners are switching onto the soft compound tire. Both Vettel and Hamilton are on the yellow sidewall soft tire. Haas in the pit lane for Romain Grosjean. For the record, Romain Grosjean pits and out onto the yellow sidewalled soft tires. Weather conditions here, working lap 24 of 44, basically unchanged from the start. Humidity has gone up a little bit to 36%, still no threat of rain. Ocon into the pits for Force India, pitting from P5. Good stop by the Force India boys. Yellow sidewall soft tires going onto the car of Ocon. On board with Sergio Perez, still holding P4 for the moment. Still on the super soft tires. We are expecting Checo to be pitting any time now. Meanwhile, at the front, Sebastian Vettel resets fastest lap of the race at 146.644 last time by. Lewis Hamilton at 146.856. About 2/10 in it. The gap between Vettel and Hamilton, 2.3 seconds. Still on board with Perez. Force India in the pit lane, and the Mexican takes to pit lane. Perez on the marks. Old tires off, new tires on, and released. Good stop by the Force India boys, and they should be done. That was close between Ocon and I believe that was Gasly. Gasly going into the pit lane now. Gasly in for his second stop of the afternoon. Going off of the super softs and on to the softs. Very tidy pit work by these guys today, all up and down the field. The summer break has not put the pit crews off the boil at all. 2.4 seconds was that stop for Pierre Gasly. And Gasly resumes in P11 behind his teammate Brendan Hartley. Verstappen in the pits now. We're not seeing it on camera. I'm seeing it on timing and scoring. He's done 29 laps on his super soft tires, expecting him to go on to the soft tires like everybody else. Now we pick up the Red Bull pit stop. Good stop by the Red Bull boys. 2.5 seconds there for Max Verstappen. On to the soft tires, and he should be good to go. Sauber in the pit lane for Marcus Ericsson. We're hearing from Fernando Alonso now on the world feed. As we're listening to Fernando Alonso, we are seeing Brendan Hartley overtaking Marcus Ericsson there into Les Combes. Fernando Alonso being very critical of Nico Hülkenberg there, messing up the braking so badly into turn 1. Obviously, that was the catalyst that started the chain reaction accident between himself, Alonso, and Leclerc there, culminating in the McLaren of Fernando Alonso landing on top of the Sauber of Charles Leclerc. On board with Marcus Ericsson in pursuit of Brendan Hartley. He'll be trying to take that position back. Into the bus stop now. Ericsson tries to make a move up the outside. That's not going to work here, but he is in good position for start-finish. And thereafter, the run-down Kemmel. Will Ericsson try anything into La Source? He's got a run on Hartley. He's got the inside line. Ericsson makes the move on Brendan Hartley into La Source. Meanwhile, at the sharp end of the field, Sebastian Vettel continues to lead over Lewis Hamilton by 4.4 seconds. Vettel last time by 146.937. Hamilton last time by a 147.565. We're continuing to watch Hartley and Ericsson trade P10 between each other. Hartley has taken it back for the moment. Sauber boys definitely liked that move by Ericsson on Hartley. However, the Toro Rosso guys will have equally liked the move by Hartley on Ericsson. This is probably going to continue for the foreseeable future. World feed now picking up Valtteri Bottas, who has hoisted himself up into P4. Not a bad day for the Finn. Verstappen is ahead of him, P3. That gap is 14.2 seconds, so no changes there in the running order, I would predict. Once again on board with Marcus Ericsson through the bus stop on Brendan Hartley. It almost looks like a replay of the previous lap. Will Ericsson try a move into La Source this time? He's a little bit farther away now. I don't think he's going to try anything, but he should have DRS on the Toro Rosso down Kemmel. Ericsson with DRS on Hartley, and he makes the move. Will Hartley try to fight back into Les Combes? No, he does not. We'll wait for the next lap for the next DRS-assisted overtake. On board now with Valtteri Bottas coming into the bus stop chicane to complete lap number 29 for him. And into the pits goes Valtteri Bottas, coming off of the super soft tires, and I presume going on to the soft tires. We'll wait for that. Bottas pulls into his pit box. Off go the old, on go the new. They are softs. Bottas released back into pit lane. 2.6 seconds was that stop by Mercedes. Yes, Vettel definitely in control of affairs this afternoon. The gap is 4.9 seconds between he and Lewis Hamilton. At the moment, Sebastian Vettel is the only driver lapping in the 46s. His last time by a 146.975. Lewis Hamilton last time by 147.096. Red Bull radio to Ricciardo, box to retire. Daniel Ricciardo, he is still 2 laps down from the leaders. Into the pit lane comes the Australian. It definitely was worth keeping him out. You never know what might happen in front. Perhaps you could have picked up a couple more positions, but not to be today for Daniel Ricciardo. Getting into Kimi Räikkönen at the end of the first corner there, lap 1. And at one point losing his rear wing. They got that car repaired, got him back out for a considerable distance, but no longer worth running. They may as well save the engine for Monza. Jonathan Straitman, the FP3 incident between Bottas and Van Dorn. Yes, Bottas definitely should have been penalized for that. He just chopped across the track right into the path of Stoffel Van Dorn. Stoffel took evasive action onto the grass and spun the car, as you might expect. Bottas didn't get a penalty for that. I really think he should have done. Obviously, coming down the Kemmel Straight, the cars are at maximum speed, and that incident could very well have ended much differently. Bottas should have been penalized for that, in my estimation. Looking rearward on board with Esteban Ocon. Valtteri Bottas is square in our sights there, center of your picture. Bottas will be attempting to overtake the Force India. Again, this is for P5. Ocon has it. Bottas wants it. Working lap 32 of 44 now. Valtteri Bottas now with some DRS assistance on Esteban Ocon. He makes the move. Bottas P5, Ocon P6. Also seeing Sergei Sirotkin has passed Carlos Sainz for P11, as has Lance Stroll over Brendan Hartley. Brendan Hartley is in the pit lane. Now onto the super soft tires to complete this Grand Prix with. Danny Ricciardo there, having a chat with Dr. Helmut Marko at the back of the Red Bull garage. Of course, Danny Ricciardo is outgoing at Red Bull. He is signed to race for Renault beginning in 2019. Interesting career move choice on his part. We'll see if that bears any fertile fruit. In replay on board with Sergei Sirotkin, Carlos Sainz absolutely blasting past on the Kemmel Straight. Sainz in P11 at this time. Meanwhile, down in P5, Valtteri Bottas, just that's fastest lap of the race, a 146.286. By far, that's the fastest lap we have seen thus far. World Feed finally picking up the Ferrari once again. Sebastian Vettel out there by himself. He leads Lewis Hamilton to the tune of 5.4 seconds last time across the stripe. Vettel's last lap, a 147.016. Hamilton last time by a 147.341. Hamilton radio. Mercedes just telling Lewis where he is faster than Vettel. It doesn't really matter, though. Ferrari has a 5.5 second lead. That is virtually unassailable now that we're within 10 laps to go. All very quiet here now, coming into the final 10 laps here of the Belgian Grand Prix. Sebastian Vettel looks like he is just lapping Lance Stroll now. Camera's following Lewis Hamilton through the bus stop chicane. Lance Stroll pulls off to the side into La Source. Vettel puts him a lap down. Valtteri Bottas still the fastest car on the track at this point. His last lap was a 147.011. Compare that to his teammate, Lewis Hamilton, 147.223 last time by. Vettel last lap, 147.402. The gap between Vettel and Hamilton has come down ever so slightly. 4.8 seconds, now 4.785 is the gap between Vettel and Hamilton. Vettel still very much in control of proceedings. Perez radio. Perez just giving the team a little bit of an update as to how things are going. Going swimmingly right now for the Mexican, holding P4 in his own right. Very nice. Bottas is behind by 3.5 seconds. I have to say, though, despite all the tumults for Force India in the last couple of weeks, they are having a good race. Perez in P4, Ocon in P6. That's about the best that they could be hoping for right now, given their recent form. They do tend to go well here when they don't crash into each other. Of course, I'm talking about what happened here last year between Ocon and Perez, but they're definitely holding station here today. Nice points haul. Technically speaking, Racing Point Force India will be scoring their first ever World Championship points today. Mercedes just giving Bottas a little bit of final coaching here, working the last 8 laps of the Grand Prix. Basically, bring it home, boy. You're doing a good job. For those of you who are interested, Driver of the Day voting is now open. F1.com/vote. The gap remaining stable at the front. Vettel leads Hamilton by 5.2 seconds. Lap times between those two gentlemen quite comparable. Vettel last time by 147.345. Hamilton's last lap 147.397. The gap between P1 Vettel and P5 Valtteri Bottas about 63 seconds. FOM graphics there displaying these little factoids. Eau Rouge Corner is named after the stream which passes underneath it, which contains red clay. That still does not quite make the connection all that obvious with people. If you don't know anything about French, you might not know that rouge means red. I don't know. Whoever's writing those graphics needs to do a slightly better job. Jonathan, you are, of course, correct there. However, I do wonder, for the benefit of the more international viewers, the European audience certainly would have some idea of French if they don't speak it fluently, but the rest of the world might not know that little factoid there, and hence the graphic does no good job of explaining why the corner has its name. Yes, it has been my experience that most Formula One fans are at least somewhat worldly wise. Obviously, the vast contingent of Formula One fans being European, you guys are quite cosmopolitan, at least in most places in Europe. Most of you do have command of at least two languages, in many cases more. It's not something we see very often in the United States, though. It's a product of your physical and political geography, though. And those TV graphics there inserted on the blank boards around the circuit. Earlier we saw it say, Lewis, push now. Now they're saying, Bottas, push now. They never say that about any other team's drivers, though. Only the Mercedes guys. Why? World Feed has been following Sergio Perez and Valtteri Bottas. Bottas is within 1 second now, thereabout, of Sergio Perez. We could be seeing another move down into Les Combes on this lap or next. Bottas with DRS on the Force India down. Kemmel not quite close enough to make a move this time by. He will be close enough on the next lap, however. Coming up to within 5 laps to go here in the 2018 Belgian Grand Prix, working lap 40 of 44. Sebastian Vettel's lead over Lewis Hamilton has now grown to just over 7 seconds. Kevin Creighton, yes, deep fried cheeseburgers are good, but we are in Belgium here. They do love fried foods. Belgium, of course, the originating country of French fries. The British audience may call them chips, but yes, they are actually Belgian. Also, of course, waffles. Yes, will you be streaming your live commentary in future races? Yes, it is my intention to commentate the remaining races here in 2018. Of course, Monza next weekend will definitely be here for that. Bottas making a move on Sergio Perez there for P4 into Les Combes, just as we had predicted. DRS-assisted overtake. Bottas now has P4. According to our local Belgian affiliate, the fries that you can buy at Spa-Francorchamps are some of the worst in all of Belgium. That is quite discouraging. Interesting to know that. If I ever go to Spa, I'll make sure to pass up on the fries. Max Verstappen there, just lapping one of the Toro Rossos. Believe that was Brendan Hartley. Working lap 41 of 44. Sebastian Vettel leading Lewis Hamilton by 7.7 seconds now. Hamilton definitely has given it up. TV now showing the gap at 8.6. Hamilton has 24 seconds back to Max Verstappen in P3, so he has no reason to keep the pressure on. On board with Romain Grosjean. He's had a quiet day, running P7 right now. His teammate behind in P8. Haas on the radio to Grosjean saying, "You're doing a really good job." Well, I would say so. Holding P7, that's about where that car should be. Yona, don't talk about funnel cake. I love funnel cake. I might want to make one now. These are the things that you do. According to the TV graphics, the gap now between Vettel and Hamilton, 9.5 seconds. That is absolutely enormous. Taking a look at Kevin Magnussen now. Solid day for him as well. P8, 7th and 8th for Haas. Double points finish on the cards once again for the American team. Good performances. Sharpie Head, a funnel cake basically tastes like a pancake. Most of the time they're made with pancake or waffle batter, but as the name suggests, they just pour the batter through a funnel into a hot skillet and just cooks up that way. Usually they're served covered in powdered sugar. They are very good. Working lap 43 of 44. This is the last lap but one for Sebastian Vettel, who now has a 10-second lead over Lewis Hamilton. Sebastian Vettel guiding that Ferrari through Blanchimont for the penultimate time, up to the bus stop. Now we're taking a look at the Sauber of Charles Leclerc, parked on the outside of La Source. There is a huge tire mark across the front section of Halo there on that Sauber, also across the what's left of the right-hand wing mirror, as well as the front of the monocoque. Halo definitely had a positive intervention to make in that incident. My suspicions were correct. The right front tire, partially detached from the McLaren of Fernando Alonso, did make its way into the vicinity of the cockpit. Halo took the blow. Down Kemmel Straight for the last time is Sebastian Vettel coming into Les Combes. Braking a little bit early. He has no reason to push this car now. He has 11.4 seconds in hand over Lewis Hamilton. The Ferrari has not put a wheel wrong all day long. Unfortunately, Kimi Räikkönen out of this race. We could argue he was taken out by Daniel Ricciardo at turn 1, causing a right rear puncture, therefore causing more damage to the rear zone on that SF71H. However, Sebastian Vettel having pretty much a carefree day by the looks of it from the outside. World feed via the helicopter shots picking up Lewis Hamilton on the run down to Pouhon. Consistent day once again for the Englishman. Obviously, he's not at the front, so he won't be entirely satisfied with his performance, but I don't think he has anything to be ashamed of today. Vettel through Stabilo for the final time, coming back up the side of the circuit, back uphill towards start-finish. Coming up to Blanchimont now for one last time. Maximum downforce, maximum acceleration there, about 200 miles an hour through that left-hander. Up to the bus stop now for the final time. The Tifosi will be losing their minds all around the world. Across start-finish for the final time, Sebastian Vettel takes the checkered flag and victory in the 2018 Belgian Grand Prix. Lewis Hamilton finishes second. More solid points in the World Championship for the Englishman, and we are just waiting now for Max Verstappen to cross the line to round out our podium finishers. Verstappen turns right, he turns left, he's negotiated the bus stop. Now to the line for the Dutchman in what is effectively his home Grand Prix. A solid podium finish for Max Verstappen. The Dutch fans are loving it. It is a sea of orange in the main grandstand. We're seeing Stoffel van Dorn finishing right now in P15 and a lap down. We await Valtteri Bottas to cross the line in 4th. Yellow flags out in Sector 1 as the drivers will be making an immediate right-hand turn through La Source, and then they will cross into pit lane backwards. They will not go around the entire 4.3 mile length of this circuit on the cool-down lap. Sebastian Vettel already in Parc Fermé, and he's climbing out of the Ferrari. Your Belgian Grand Prix winner, there he is. Vettel doing a little happy dance there in Parc Fermé before greeting his mechanics. Ferrari definitely will be liking this. They had a bit of a rough weekend, some issues in qualifying yesterday, Raikkonen retiring today, but they still managed to bring home the victory with the number 1 car. That's what we like to see. Lewis Hamilton taking a close look at the Ferrari of Sebastian Vettel there in Parc Fermé. He does not look particularly animated here. He hasn't yet taken off his helmet. And as far as I can tell, he hasn't gone to go see his mechanics. Meanwhile, Sebastian Vettel there waving a Ferrari flag around in Parc Fermé. You do have to say, Vettel, he is a team player. He certainly loves Ferrari. Of course, having won the race certainly helps him feel better as well, but yeah, good to see. As they crossed the line, Sebastian Vettel in P1 taking the victory here in the Belgian Grand Prix. Second for Lewis Hamilton. Third, Max Verstappen, rounding out our podium finishers. Fourth for Valtteri Bottas, who happened to go purple in Sector 2, 46.173 on his last lap. Perez in 5th, Ocon 6th, Grosjean in 7th, Magnussen 8th, Gasly 9th, and Ericsson 10th. Martin Brundle now talking to Sebastian Vettel. Sebastian Vettel talking about that lap 1 pass on Lewis Hamilton said the timing was crucial. I think I got it right. Indeed you did, Seb. Sebastian Vettel definitely quite happy there with the performance today. And nice to hear him say that it's just fun to get a lot of time on this track in a good car. Brundle now talking to Lewis Hamilton. Lewis Hamilton making an interesting comment here talking to Martin Brundle. He says, Ferrari have, and I quote, a few trick things going on in the car. Is Lewis Hamilton insinuating that Ferrari are cheating? We'll see. Now, Max Verstappen gets his chance to talk to Martin Brundle. The Dutch fans erupt in rapturous applause. Got a replay there of Sebastian Vettel's team radio as he crossed the line. Interesting exchange there. Sim Racing 604, the great one. He has come among us. Go eat some funnel cake, please. Podium finishers have now made their way up into the prep room outside the podium. Lewis Hamilton, his whole demeanor here looks quite downtrodden, I must say. You finished second. You're still leading the Drivers' Championship. I don't think you have much to be sad about. Well, this is one of the most quiet prep room scenes I've seen in quite a while. Nobody talking to each other. Hamilton and Vettel just taking a look at the final timing screens there. Yep, Sebastian Vettel taking driver of the day honors. That definitely seems fair. That was a good drive. And a decisive move right at the start there. Top three now making their way out onto the podium. Max Verstappen undoubtedly the crowd favorite here today. Drivers have made their way up onto the podium. Sebastian Vettel salutes the crowd. Stand by for the German and Italian national anthems. That is a musical combination we have heard quite a lot in Formula One history, and it's good to hear it again. Sebastian Vettel receiving the winner's trophy here from the Deputy Prime Minister of Belgium, apparently. Ferrari definitely loving it whenever they win a race. Lewis Hamilton gets his trophy. And Max Verstappen, he may be the lowest placed of the podium finishers, but certainly he's receiving the most applause out of any of the drivers up there. And now the suited gentleman will leave the rostrum and the champagne gets sprayed. Oh, you are very welcome for the stream. If my commentary really is that good, well, that's quite humbling to hear. Yes, the only thing missing from this podium, compared to the F1 2018 podium scenes, we're missing all the confetti. But, yeah, looks pretty good to me. It's just amazing. Wherever you go in the world, you always see Ferrari fans and Ferrari flags. It's pretty amazing. That's how you know you have a brand that works. And of course, lots of orange smoke in the air right now as well. All in all, I'd say this is about what we could have expected from a Belgian Grand Prix. Obviously, the big point of interest for the entire race, though, was the Turn 1, Lap 1 incident, which took out no less than 4 drivers. Danny Ricciardo, Kimi Räikkönen, Charles Leclerc, Fernando Alonso, and Nico Hülkenberg all involved in it. Räikkönen and Ricciardo did resume the race, however, both did retire subsequently. So all 5 retirements today related to that Turn 1, Lap 1 incident, either directly or in reaction to it as the cars continued to fall apart after receiving the damage. Charles Leclerc, he had a McLaren land on top of him. He is okay. Halo evidently doing its job there. Fernando Alonso also getting bounced into the air and having that hard landing on top of the Sauber. He also appears to be okay. Nico Hülkenberg causing that whole scrum in Turn 1, completely missing the braking point there, getting into the back of Fernando Alonso. Our next visit along the course of the Formula 1 calendar is next week, Monza, the Italian Grand Prix. Always one of the favorite weekends of the year. We will get the opportunity to see the cars trimmed out for minimum downforce and maximum straight line speed. Monza, the fastest track in Formula 1. The lap is spent to the tune of 75% of it at full throttle. Absolutely crazy. We might even see straight line speeds in excess of 360 kilometers per hour down the start-finish straight there at Monza. .360 kilometers an hour in freedom units, that's around 220, 225 miles per hour. Yes, of course, the Italian Grand Prix being Ferrari's home race, they will undoubtedly be wanting to put in a good performance there. It may also be a somewhat reflective, somber affair for the Ferrari team. Obviously, Sergio Marchionne, he unfortunately died just before the Hungarian Grand Prix weekend. Ferrari carried a black stripe across their cars for that race. Today in Belgium, this is Ferrari's first win since that unfortunate happening. The Italian Grand Prix at Monza might be a similar affair. They'll be hoping to win it. At this point, though, it is time for your friendly neighborhood F-Man to be signing off. I do thank you all very much for joining me here today in our commentary stream of the Belgian Grand Prix, and of course, we're always happy here when Ferrari take a Grand Prix victory. We'll be hoping for some similar scenes next week from Monza when we see you from there. Until next time, though, I do thank you all very, very much for watching. Thank you all very much. We will see you around on the channel and all other normal means of social media if you would like to get your F-Man fix at any time you would desire. Until next time, thank you all very much for joining me today. Thank you all. Ferrariman601 saying we will see you soon.